Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, dear students, today we'll be talking about our last class in the Bioinorganic Chemistry series for competitive exams like JRF-NET, GATE, and then and related exams for PhD admissions. Now, this topic we'll be talking about, that is the poisoning effect in the hemoglobin. Now, this is very important topic. And in this topic, you'll always see questions. This is also one topic where you always see the questions in the exam. So there are many poisoning effects. For example, one of the poisoning effects we can talk about, we'll start with the number one. You have, that is your Sickel cell anemia. Sickel cell, it's SIC rather, it's SIC, Sickel, SICKEL, Sickel cell anemia. So now ये जो इफेक्ट है इसमें क्या होता है, where from the question comes. So basically इसमें होता क्या है, that your normal hemoglobin, which has, let's say it's an RBC, red blood cell in the hemoglobin, it's circular, its color is the reddish. So when this poisoning effect comes into the picture, जब भी ये poisoning effect हो जाता है किसी के blood में, जिसको हम कहते हैं Sickel cell anemia, now the shape becomes like a skull. So it becomes like this. Now उससे ये होता है कि blood में आपका ये जो है, the transport is not, the transport of blood, it's not that normal. The pressure gets increased inside. The viscosity of the blood increases. The flow of the blood decreases. So result ये होता है कि आपका जो ऑक्सीजन है वो properly different parts of body को नहीं पहुंचता, and then finally it leads to the death. So now because of the Sickel, now Sickel is a type of shape, no, it doesn't flows to the different, the vessels. Now ये होता क्या है, जहां से क्वेश्चन आता है. So basically जो आपका ब्लड में जो हीमोग्लोबिन होता है, रेड ब्लड सेल्स में जो हीमोग्लोबिन होता है, HB, we know that it has a it has a porphyrin head and then a globule chain. Fine. There are 4 chains, there are 4 heads, 4 heme heads in the hemoglobin. Now this globin chain, it has different amino acids. Now and we know the chains, there are 2 types of chains, alpha and beta. Now when in the beta chain, at the 6th position, amino acid number 6, there is an amino acid normally which is your glutamic acid. Now if that amino acid gets replaced by some means, it gets replaced by valine, the red blood cell, it acquires the shape of the skull. So it results in the Sickel cell anemia. Glutamic acid by valine. Now why it acquires this type of shape? What is the basics for this? Why the flow of the blood decreases? Why the clotting increases? So for that let's draw the structure of glutamic acid and let's draw the structure of valine. The glutamic acid, it's like you have a carboxylic acid group here, then you have CH2, then you have CH2, then you have this CH, you have this amine side getting protonated, and on this side you have carboxylate ion getting, that proton came here, it's a zwittrine structure. We know amino acids have this zwittrine structure, that is the bipolar structure. Now this is one structure. Now let's talk about valine. Valine is like this. You have a methyl group here, this is another methyl group here, then you have that carbon, we have aminated, then we have a protonated amine here, and then we have this is COO negative side. Fine, this is called as the valine. Now अगर आप दोनों को थोड़ा सा देख ले, we'll compare them. Now this side is same, this side, but on this side we have here carboxylic acid group, and here we have this alkyl group. ठीक? So this is a polar part, and this is your non-polar. Or you can write down, this is your hydrophobic, this is hydrophilic. Now because of this, the nature called as the because of this non-polar nature, hydrophobic nature of this valine, इससे क्या होता है, जो पूरा प्रोटीन होता है, since it has the hydrophobic nature, it is not soluble in the water. So result इससे ये हो जाता है that it is the जो पूरा hemoglobin होता है उसकी solubility reduce हो जाती है. Solubility reduces. So what does that mean, the solubility reduces? इससे ये होता है कि when the solubility of hemoglobin reduces, so it results in the blockade in the flow of oxygen supply. So because of this, the less solubility nature जो blood supply होती है, now it doesn't reach properly, and then जो oxygen supply उसके साथ होती है, जो oxygen transport होता है with the help of hemoglobin, that doesn't reach to the organs properly, and then it finally leads to the death. That's the fatal. Now this is our number one. So sickle cell anemia results when we have at the beta 6th position in the beta chain, glutamic acid gets replaced by valine, and then because of that nature of these two sites, in this case it is hydrophobic, the solubility reduces, so automatically the supply of oxygen becomes less and different parts of the body. So this is our effect number one. Now second effect is that is the methemoglobin effect. Now what is that? देखिए, so point number 2, we're discussing the point number 2. इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे, ये भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. दिस इज methemoglobin. It's actually methemoglobinemia. जो डिजीज का नाम जो है, जो पॉइजनिंग इफेक्ट जो है, दैट इज methemoglobinemia. Like this, it was anemia, sickle cell anemia. So basically, normally होता क्या है, our hemoglobin here it normally contains iron as iron 2 plus 2. That's the ferrous state, and this ferrous state is active. It carries the oxygen, and then it transports the oxygen to the different parts of the body. It transports the oxygen like this. Now this is the normal state, but in case of methemoglobinemia, this iron gets oxidized. So in case of that's called as a methHB. This hemoglobin, when the iron gets oxidized to iron 3, that is called as methemoglobinemia. So when the iron in the hemoglobin, which is present in the porphyrin core, when that gets oxidized by some means, there are various species which are generated by the normal metabolism in the body. Now those species like free radicals, what they do, they have the tendency to carry the oxidation. So they carry the oxidation of that iron in plus 2 to plus 3. This is called as a methemoglobin. तो normally जो हमारा blood होता है उसमें there is almost 2 to 3% of methemoglobin. So that doesn't create any problem. But when the concentration of this methemoglobin is very very high, उससे क्या होता है, since your concentration of methemoglobin increases, now iron 3 has less affinity. Its affinity to carry the oxygen is very very less. So that affinity to carry the oxygen, that reduces. So the affinity to carry the oxygen reduces, so that automatically means now the organs will get less supply of oxygen, the cells will get less supply of oxygen, so that will affect the process of respiration and then related things. So at low concentration, it's normally present in the blood 2 to 3%. So no issue. But when the concentration increases, that iron gets converted from iron 2 to iron 3. So basically this iron is present in the body in the form of Fe hexaco plus 3. So this is actually where the concentration of this iron increase in the blood is called as a methemoglobin. In that case, the affinity for the oxygen that reduces. Now our body has the mechanism. There's an enzyme called as a methemoglobin reductase. So what it does, this methemoglobin reductase, it reduces this complex, it reduces this iron to back. So it's called, it reduces, that way it's called as reductase. So it reduces that methemoglobin to the normal hemoglobin. So this enzyme is present there. ठीक है. Now ये important चीज यहाँ पे याद रखनी कि जो Fe2 form होती है, that's the ferrous form, that has the affinity for the oxygen, that helps in the transport of oxygen. But if it gets converted to Fe3, the ferric form, now that has less affinity to transport the oxygen. So this was important thing regarding the methemoglobin. अच्छा, normally क्या होता है, जो color होता है blood का, that is due to the hemoglobin. First of all, this is very important. So the color of blood is red, that is due to the hemoglobin Hb, that is due to the iron Fe2 is present there, and then it is present inside with the core of that tetrapyrrole porphyrin core. Now that porphyrin is highly conjugated. Now this color, the red color which appears, that is basically due to the pi to pi star transition. We know that porphyrin acts as a ligand. So when the porphyrin acts as a ligand, your porphyrin, it acts as a ligand, and ligand, it's highly conjugated, so we have to pi star transition. That pi to pi transition is basically responsible for the red color of the blood. Okay, so this is very, very important. Even जो chlorophyll, which are related species which contain this porphyrin type structure, we have myoglobin, we have cytochromes, chlorophyll, and there are some enzymes which contain similar type of this ligand. There also the color is due to the pi to pi star transition. So when the hemoglobin, it is associated with this methemoglobinemia poisoning, its color becomes bluish. So when there is this problem called as methemoglobinemia, the color becomes bluish. This is very important. So it goes from a red to bluish state. So that can also give us an idea that whether the concentration of that methemoglobin percentage is increased in the blood or not. And then this is beyond that, it is the field of medical sciences, so that I will not discuss. Now the last point which I am going to discuss in this point, that is cyanide poisoning. Now ये भी इसमें भी question आता है, this is very important. So the last point we will be discussing, that is this cyanide poisoning. So we will be discussing cyanide poisoning. Point number 3rd. Cyanide poisoning. So cyanide, we know it acts as a ligand. Cyanide, it can be derived from any form of compound, sodium cyanide or whatever, isothiocyanate, wherever we have this cyanide group present, whether it is isothiocyanate, thiocyanate, sodium cyanide. So that can give the cyanide inside the blood. Somehow it goes inside the body. Now this cyanide is a ligand. It is C triple bond N. Since it's a ligand, and our oxygen which binds to the iron, that's also a ligand. And this iron, it binds this oxygen, so it binds to that hemoglobin coordinates like this. ठीक? Same is the case. Cyanide also binds that iron in the +2 state in the similar form, but cyanide is a triple bond. It's a strong field ligand, so its affinity for oxygen is more in comparison to your iron +2. Since its affinity for the oxygen is more, it binds strongly with the oxygen. So when there is the concentration of cyanide increase in the blood, when in the blood we have some concentration of cyanide, so what it does, it has more affinity for the blood. लेकिन जो डेथ्स का जो केस होता है साइनाइड पॉइजनिंग का, इसमें ये इतना इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. जो मेन इंपॉर्टेंट रीजन वो होता है कि साइनाइड बेसिकली इट ब्लॉक्स, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट, यहाँ पे बहुत बार क्वेश्चन आया, इट ब्लॉक्स द इलेक्ट्रॉन ट्रांसपोर्ट चेन. It basically affects the electron transport chain. We know that in the process of respiration in the cells, there are enzymes, and there's an enzyme called as cytochrome oxidase. Cytochrome oxidase. Now that cytochrome oxidase, what it does, it basically it has an important role. The cytochrome oxidase, this basically oxidizes your species, and then there is generation of ATP molecules inside the mitochondria. So now this cyanide, what it does, it prevents the cells from using the oxygen. So cyanide basically it prevents the cells, it prevents cells to use oxygen. It blocks the cytochrome oxidase. Okay, so it blocks the cytochrome oxidase. It doesn't takes that electron. It doesn't allows the cells to use the oxygen. So result ये होता है कि जो आपका formation of ATP बनता है by the breakage of the glucose. Now that doesn't happen when the energy is not generated like ATP, NADPH, NAD. When these species are not generated, so the energy is not generated. So final result ये होता है कि it leads to the death. So it's very very fatal. So ये होता है इसका main reason that leads to the death in case of cyanide poisoning. That it actually blocks the electron transport chain. It prevents the cells to use the oxygen rather than it binds the hemoglobin. Even though it also strongly binds the hemoglobin. Now, there's one more question that we can discuss. Carbon monoxide poisoning also. This is very important. So that I can discuss here carbon monoxide poisoning. CO. So basically carbon monoxide is also a ligand CO, and this is stronger ligand than oxygen. When this is a stronger ligand than oxygen, तो जो ऑक्सीजन अगर दोनों गैसेस प्रेजेंट है, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड भी इनहेल एक ह्यूमन बीइंग ने किया, इंसान ने, ऑक्सीजन भी. Now this carbon dioxide has a very very strong affinity to bind with the hemoglobin. Its affinity to bind with the hemoglobin, that's iron 2, it's almost 200 times more. It's 200 times more than oxygen. So when it has more affinity to bind the oxygen, so that automatically means what it will do, that it will reduce the availability of oxygen in the sites. It will block the sites for the on the hemoglobin. So result is that it also eventually leads to death. So this carbon monoxide poisoning, so the reason behind this is that it has a more affinity. It's a strong field ligand. It has a more affinity with the iron 2, or it has a more affinity with the hemoglobin, and the affinity is 200 times more than oxygen. So these are all the basic things where the question is being asked. तो यहाँ ये कुछ areas है जहाँ मैंने कुछ discuss किए हैं. I have discussed them very brief, very concise. The reason ये है कि जहाँ से question आता है वहीं पे I have tried to touch these points. So this was our last topic in your concise chemistry, bio-inorganic chemistry series for the CSIR-JRF-NET GATE and related exams for PhD admissions. So this is all for the bioinorganic chemistry. इसके अलावा I don't think the questions will be asked there. You can check the previous year's paper. If there's any question which is asked beyond these lectures which I have taught, you can write down, or you can send a message, or you can write down the message here. On this number you can send that question on this WhatsApp number 8491857406, or you can send that at mekandchem@gmail. तो आप यहाँ पे उसको पेपर को भेज सकते हो जहाँ से क्वेश्चन आया है बियॉन्ड द लेक्चर्स आई हैव टॉट. आई डोंट थिंक मे बी देयर इज सम क्वेश्चन, बट overall the majority 90-95% of bioinorganic chemistry is explained it here. And now the next series which we will go to start, that will be the spectroscopy series. So we're starting now this spectroscopy series for the CSIR-JRF-NET. And in addition to this, हमारी और एक series run automatically जो चली रही है, that is the organic reagents, so that also will continue. So this is all from here. Thank you.